can launch a campaign within 10 minutes with no coding required whatsoever. But if you don't use Moongate, what you would have to do is either A, you could hire your own Web3 development team, which obviously takes months of time and ridiculous amount of fees, or you can hire a Web3 dev house, like an agency that builds it for you, but that would cost probably 200 to 400K US minimum.
Hey, we'll get right back to the podcast, but first I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Vertex Protocol. Vertex is a cutting-edge decentralized perp exchange that brings you the best of both worlds. With its lightning-fast order book model, Vertex offers precise price discovery and minimal slippage. Take advantage of cross-margin trading to optimize your capital and trade the most popular assets like Pepe, Doge, WIF, Memecoin, Eigenlayer, and more, all with leverage. So why wait? Dive into decentralized trading today. Visit vertexprotocol.com to learn more. Trade smarter, trade with Vertex. Well, welcome to the Decipher podcast. We're stoked to have you on today. Jon from Moongate. So who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. So quick introduction about myself. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Moongate. Before I dive into Moongate and what that's about, maybe I can share a bit more about my background and how I kind of became an entrepreneur. So actually Moongate is my third startup. Previously, I had two other consumer tech startups, one of which was actually acquired by another strategic competitor, and then the other raised a lot of money in Silicon Valley. But this is kind of my third startup, but my first one that kind of aligns all of my interest field, specifically Web3, and also kind of how we can apply Web3 to disrupt different consumer applications. And so super excited to be doing this. And before crypto, I used to be in TradFi. I used to be in private equity investor here in Asia. Also really just focus on consumer and TMT type of deals. So consumer tech has kind of been my bread and butter since the beginning of my career.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get interested in crypto and where did it sounds like you're in finance a little bit, but did you ever work in crypto before Moongate?
So I was an active investor in crypto. Been investing since like late 2016. And obviously like that was a pretty different time where it's just basically just blindly spray and pray and different ICOs and pre-sales. And basically, that was a very interesting time. But the issue with that period of time is that I felt like a lot of the stuff that I saw was a lot of, frankly speaking, like vaporware and just a lot of fluff, right? And it just didn't give me enough conviction at that time to kind of pursue a full-time career in Web3. And so, yeah, at that time, I decided to stick with PE for a bit and then eventually kind of started my own tech business. I guess like the follow-up question might be like, what made the change in kind of conviction? How did that kind of all change?
Yeah, I would be super curious.
Yeah, because I would say like it also happened kind of gradually. So obviously, as a finance person, I've always been kind of fairly involved with all types of investments. As long as the risk return is good, I'll be there. And so in I think 2021, NFT started getting quite hot. And I personally invested in quite a few, quite a few is an understatement, but a ton of NFT projects. At first I was purely just a speculator, to be honest. But I soon started to realize that for the first time ever, at least since I have been involved in crypto, I started to notice more and more like Web2 brands and conglomerates actually entering crypto through NFTs. And I would say like previously with all the different like DeFi applications, all of that, there were basically like no Web2 brands involvement. Yes, I guess like some banks would like take a stab at kind of building maybe, doing some RWA stuff, but it was still very, very early stage. But I, for the first time, actually saw like a lot of consumer brands like McDonald's, Nike, etc., actually entering crypto through NFTs. And so I thought that was very different and exciting. And what at that time they promised was that, hey, by purchasing these NFTs, you would have different sort of kind of utility in the real world. And so I drank the Kool-Aid. I bought a ton of these utility NFTs. only to realize that even though me as an end user, I really want to utilize these NFTs, and at the other end, these brands really want to deliver the value they promise in the NFTs. But the issue is that that just never happened. Like these brands want to do it, end users want to use it, but it just didn't happen because there just wasn't infrastructure in place to kind of fill that gap. And so, as a big bag holder of these utility NFTs, obviously I was very frustrated, but at the same time, I also saw a really big opportunity to potentially build a tool or build the infrastructure to connect the two sides so that, well, Web2 brands can finally kind of utilize these Web3 technology easily without any kind of tech savviness. And then all of these NFT holders, initially with Web3 users, but eventually with Web2 users as well, can actually start to use these Web3 technology in the real world, which would unlock kind of different value. And so since then, I mean, we have initially built out like a token gating solution, just helping people verify and prove that they hold certain NFTs in real life settings. Then we expanded to actually doing NFT ticketing. And we became actually the biggest NFT ticketing player in the space. And we also expanded into other verticals, other kind of use cases of NFTs, such as like memberships, digital goods, like inserting NFT chips on like a T-shirt, for example.
Right.
And now we're kind of taking another step and expanding to actually the bigger picture, which is what we realize is that we are helping a lot of these brands and consumers generate like attention and engagement. And we feel as though like these engagement data are actually fairly valuable. Like the fact that you spent this much money at a particular concert, or you actually attended this concert, or you went to different areas of interest and checked in. Like all of those are actually very valuable data, which either in the current world are not, well, it's not something that's captured by anyone, or two, it is captured, but it's actually retained by other, like different centralized platforms, like maybe Google
Right.
or Facebook that capture your data. Um, and so I thought that with blockchain technology, actually, we can make it so that these engagement data actually accrues to the data creator. So if I'm the guy that attended this event, that engagement data would actually be treated like a digital asset in my own wallet. I can see that. I mean, in the future, different like advertisers, for example, can see that, oh, I attended this event and I checked in or whatever, or I referred friends. And I would become like a really prime target for their advertisement. And what we're trying to create now today with Moongate is we're effectively trying to build out an attention asset protocol whereby in the future, different advertisers can directly bypass these centralized parties and platforms like Facebook, Google, etc., and pay their ad dollars directly to the end users for their attention. And I think the key innovation here is that I think compared to Web 2, where when you spend a dollar on Google or Facebook, you don't really get to have really specific um, targeting of your like user base. Meaning, like you can only pick, oh, maybe people that are based in Hong Kong, female between the age of 22 to like 30. Like that's it. Like you can't be more granular because of
Right.
different reasons, like because of regulatory reasons, but also because um, sometimes they just don't collect that data. But what we're trying to make possible with Moongate and what our grand vision is that in the future, because these data are effectively like zero party data, meaning it's data contributed by the user themselves, like it's not subject us to these kind of regulatory restrictions. And it also makes it possible for these brands to be able to uh, have like highly specific ad targeting. So instead of like having like a general targeting where, oh, I only target female between 20 to 27 in Hong Kong, I can target specifically people that maybe went to a concert last month that is within this theme. And I can tell just by looking at their like digital assets. And so you can target these people very effectively in a kind of privacy compliant manner. And so I think that's the kind of big vision that we're trying to unlock and try to empower this like new paradigm of advertising model. And I think obviously this is not necessarily new. I think a lot of other kind of crypto projects are also seeing the same vision, which is great. I think that means there's something there. But I think how we're different is that because our protocol itself, we started off as helping these different brands and consumers generate these engagement data. And so we actually have a ton of these primary data that we can actually control and direct how it's utilized. Whereas I think for a lot of these other protocols, they kind of have to rely on, like, let's just say, like, oh, Uber rating, or I don't know, Spotify rating, where effectively those data are actually not controlled by you at all, right? And so if one day Uber or whatever wants to just block off your access, and then you're kind of screwed. And so that's kind of I mean, a long kind of rambling chat on kind of how we got here and how what we're building. Yeah, sorry, I digressed quite a bit.
No, there's a ton of little like branches I want to take off of this, but the first one is like a really interesting point. Honestly, the idea that like payment and identity hasn't really been linked before, and the only way I can kind of think of this is like when the local bike store or whatever says, "Oh, can we have your email or your number to put in?" Right, like that kind of links payment and identity. But you know, you work in a lot of ways in consumer payment, and identity is hardly ever linked, or if it is, like you're not able to act on it, right? If you have someone paying for something, you can see their name, but you can't like target them. So
Yeah,
it's a really
I would
interesting integration.
yeah, and I would also highlight, like, in Web 2, like maybe some of these credit card providers or et cetera do track that data, but that's in like a pretty siloed source. And so like if you have that data with the credit card provider and you have another siloed source of data with your bike shop, like those are like, you as a user cannot prove that you own all of those data because they all just exist in their own centralized database. But with
Right.
blockchain, and if we're able to put that data on chain, you as the user can prove all of that um, easily. And so I think it's actually quite innovative in how interesting that, if you think about how we got started with just NFTs and trying to be honest, we started with NFTs and because I held a lot of NFTs, I wanted to just build an NFT gallery so I could flex my NFTs. But to think like 3 years from then, we built such a big kind of product that's used by thousands of brands around the world. It's quite a crazy evolution, but we're kind of very excited and proud that we're able to get that traction.
It's interesting too, that you talk about like NFTs with utility being attractive to you in that kind of 2021 era, um, and that ended up kind of being because a lot of people weren't able to fulfill in the promises of utility around NFTs. It was like utility was almost a detractor from some of these NFTs because like a punk is just a punk or whatever, and a milady is just a milady. But if you were some corporate and you said, oh, you're gonna have gold access to the Super Bowl or whatever, then you weren't able to fill in that promise, and then that kind of like led to this other cycle of people kind of having a falling out of the confidence, and as attention fell off, then the companies kind of exited those quietly. So it sounds like there's an opportunity though for a revitalization in this space, and it sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and I would add that, like, you're absolutely right. Like, that process definitely did happen. A lot of these major brands did have kind of a falling out. And to be honest, a lot of our Web2 customers, when we kind of pitch to them, we don't necessarily pitch like the NFT angle anymore. Because to be honest, like, NFTs still to a lot of these Web2 brands is not necessarily the easiest pitch. And so, like, with the market, with the NFT market kind of crashing basically since 2021, like naturally, I guess it might be, one might be curious, like how will we actually be able to grow by like 100 times in the last kind of year or two? And I think that the answer to that is we actually don't, when we talk to like our brands and customers, we don't sell like the NFT angle at all. What we do sell is like what real tangible business value are we able to bring to them? Like, can we help them drive more revenue? Can we help them decrease their costs? How can we help them increase their customer retention rate or decrease their customer acquisition costs? And because I came from kind of Web 2 with two prior startups in the Web 2 space, I realized that like these key metrics are actually what matters to these brands. And because I mean, to them, ultimately, it's just KPIs, right? And so because we were so focused on just like helping these brands reach their KPIs, we were able to successfully onboard like thousands of like brands, including like Binance, OKX, Sony, Wonderfruit, etc., and many other brands to utilize us, even though so-called we're in the NFT field. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's also kind of one of the key learnings that I brought from my prior startups to here at Moongate, just building something that's actually valuable, but also something that people are willing to pay you for.
Right. Well, I'm honestly ultra bullish on Web2 founders that come to Web3 because it seems like Web3 founders, Web3 or maybe not native isn't the right word, but founders that have founded their first company in Web3 are often spoiled by the fact that crypto users will try a product just because it's crypto, or they'll invest in a product, or they'll use that and they'll say, "Oh, it's crypto, I'll check it out," right? And then, but Web2 founders know that it's not the case where you're just going to get free attention just because of the industry you exist in, that you actually have to provide value. And so when I talk with Web2 founders, they're often a lot more pragmatic about, stuff like, yeah, making money, stuff like product, stuff like having a stronger, like USP for whatever company they're trying to engage with. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say like that's also another point of how we kind of compete or differentiate against some of our competitors. Because like by and large, a lot of our users, when they utilize our protocol, like they're not here to farm rewards or anything. Like they're here because
Mm-hmm.
maybe they attended a concert that utilized our technology, or they attended an event, or they bought a brand membership. Like these are like real people that are there because they actually have like affinity with the brand. Whereas I think a lot of other kind of Web3 protocols, maybe unfortunately, because they are just kind of optimizing for hype, sometimes their kind of statistics or user stats are inflated or just have a ton of
Right.
bots. And so the difference between our user base is that their user base is a lot more value extractive, meaning they would check out a new project, like you said, just to farm the rewards. But when the
Mm-hmm.
rewards are gone, they're gone, like immediately. But for us, like because our users are like real, and so when they go to a protocol and they check it out, if they like it, they're there, like they're real users and they're sticky. And so yeah, that's also kind of another point that I mean, you didn't really ask about our competitors, but just something that just popped up off the top of my head.
The other thing that this makes me think of is this kind of like idea that meme coins have extracted a lot of the attention from like protocols with products. And this goes for DeFi, but this goes across crypto as well. And the counter argument that I've heard to that is like, well, no, now companies have to like stand up on their own. They can't just be a meme of DeFi, a meme of tokenization, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to build a tokenization platform. It's going to be great, and we're going to onboard the world. Now it's I have to make sales. I have to have partnerships. I have to have integrations, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean the way I think about it, and when we talk to our like brands that we work with, is that there's no denying that like NFTs back then and like now like meme coins are really like good ways to attract attention. And we do use NFTs and meme coins for our brands to help them attract attention. But I think that is really just the first step. It's like, yes, okay, you won the user's attention, but like how do you actually now deliver on your promise or any value that you bring to these customers? And so uh, I think that's also kind of how we're different from maybe other launch pads per se, whereby the other guys are just focused on, okay, I'll help you issue these NFTs or meme coins, but
Right.
you're like left by yourself afterwards. But for us, we're really focused on like, okay, yes, now that we help you issue these assets, but how can you actually integrate into your real world operation? Can you do like different CRM, data analytics, email marketing, building a gated community channel, gated rewards, gamification? All of that we actually provide, and actually is where our bread and butter is. And I think for a lot of these Web2 brands, like ultimately, like I said, they really do care about the KPIs. And so, yes, maybe you have like initially like really good sales number, but if your retention rate is like basically zero, if you because you don't deliver any value, that's still ultimately going to look bad on these brands. And because we're one of the basically only few protocols out there that provide that like post-sale service and post-sale utility, uh, that's why I think we're almost like the only option that a lot of these bigger brands can choose from. And so that's why, even though like in the last couple of years, the NFT market has gone to shit, to be honest, we're still able to like grow and get like bigger and bigger customers that are
Right.
utilizing our protocol.
Yeah. So you strike me as like a very pragmatic founder. Um, One thing I'm very curious about is the tech stack you're using. So you're bringing users that might not be necessarily interested in crypto or have anything to do with crypto, and companies that are the same way. You know, some crypto, some not. How do you onboard a new user to the platform? What does that look like, and how does that user flow look like when they're engaging with something built on Moongate?
Yeah, so it depends because there's many different potential funnels that we can onboard like users
Mm-hmm.
from, like based on like different applications. Like our biggest one is NFT ticketing, but we also, like I said, do NFT membership. We do like brand coins for like basically meme coins for brands as well.
Right.
As well as we do like on-site quests for different brands and scavenger hunts. So all of those like user experience is a little bit different. But like on a more high level, like what we are really hone in on is basically abstracting all the complexity of Web3. And so, meaning from an end user perspective, like when they first encounter our platform, like they just need to create a wallet or what, create an account using their email address. And we obviously automatically create a non custodial wallet for them. And then once they purchase these attention assets, they can choose to pay with fiat, credit card, or of course, if they have crypto, they can pay with that. And once they do pay, they get all these standard like email confirmation, all of that, which you see in Web 2, but for some reason you don't really see in Web 3. And then once you do pay, we also help you pay for the gas fee. So even for a Web 2 user that doesn't have any crypto in their wallet, you don't have to worry about that. You're still able to get your digital assets in your wallet that we created for you. And so once you purchase that digital asset, you can then go into, of course, like our user portal to see all the different kind of utility or different benefits that you can get because you bought that NFT or digital asset. And then you can also, of course, like go into like different gated community channels that we built that's tied to that, or explore different like gamified kind of quests that are entitled to you because you hold that digital asset. But the name of the game is that like the whole process is like effectively like no Web3 element from the end user perspective. Like they don't
Mm-hmm.
see what we're doing in the back end. And to be honest, I think that's the way to go because like when you like went from a Web2 user perspective, like they would definitely not jump through like the many different hoops that you currently expect Web3 users to do in order to use a product. Because in the Web2 space, like all the other applications are seamless, literally. And so if you have something that has as high friction as like your average Web3 protocol, your bounce rate would be very high. People would check out your platform, but they leave or they won't stay around. And so for us, we from the end user perspective, we really made it very simple and very basically Web 2 friendly. And that's why actually across our 1.7 million end users right now, about 70% of the users actually logged in with their email, meaning these are what we consider as like Web 2 people. And then the remaining kind of users are like crypto native people that connect it with their crypto wallets. And then for like brands and like creators that utilize our protocol, maybe I'll kind of quickly describe as well like what our protocol is. Like I said, it consists of kind of two layers. On the surface, there's what we call the utility layer, whereby different brands and creators can utilize our no-code platform to launch these smart token campaigns for different real-world use cases that drive attention and engagement. And all these engagement data feeds into our data layer, whereby, like I said earlier, it's basically infrastructure that we built to make it so that these engagement data can be owned by the data creator themselves, so that in the future we can actually build out like a marketplace for them to monetize their engagement data. And so for going back to like the brand's point, um, for these brands, the option between using us versus using like an external party is that with us, you can launch a smart token campaign that integrates seamlessly into your real world application, and including like all these kind of comprehensive CRM, data analytics, email marketing. You can launch a campaign within 10 minutes with no coding required whatsoever. But if you don't use Moongate, what you would have to do is either A, you could hire your own like Web3 development team, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously takes like months of time and like ridiculous amount of fees, or you can hire like a Web3 dev house, like an agency that builds it for you, but that would cost probably 200 to 400K US minimum just to build like a very basic website or that helps you kind of mint NFTs. That doesn't really integrate into your real world operation. And that would take probably 3 to 6 months at the quickest. So it's a very easy sell when we talk to these brands because option A, like you can do this in 10 minutes. Even like you can build a full working product to show to your superior within 10 minutes at like basically no cost, or you can try to get like a web agency to build it out for you for like 4 or 500K and take 6 months of your time. So it's a very easy sell for even for like these massive brands like Binance, who's actually using us to power all of their events globally. So that's like 1,500 events each year using the Moongate protocol. Like for them, like it's such an easy pitch. So yeah, sorry, I digressed again.
No, no worries. This is how we go exploring, uncovering stuff. So it's great. I'm curious, has any, sometimes, you talk to someone, you say, oh, I work in crypto, I work in Web3, I work with NFTs, and people are a little bit skeptical. It seems like it's possible, recently I know that the chill guy, meme coin founder, was like, I don't want anything to do with crypto. Um, have you encountered any cases where people have said, hey, this is interesting, but I don't really mess with NFTs or whatever. Has that ever been an obstacle?
Yeah, definitely. I would say like especially like in the initial like year or so, where for Web2 brands, like they still don't really know what NFT is. Like they all
Mm-hmm.
they know about NFT is that, oh, there's that monkey picture that's worth like a down payment for a house. Like that's just absurd. I just don't buy it. But thankfully, over time, two kind of things happen. Like number one, I think generally the public got more and more accepting of like crypto in general,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Yeah.
also spend a bit more time to learn and see like other big brands using like Web3 technology, and think. And secondarily, we also have more and more like case studies that we can actually practically show to these brands and say, hey, like Token 2049 used us for this and that. Wonderfruit or I don't know, like other big brands are using us for this. And these are like the tangible business value that we delivered. Um, and with that, it just becomes a lot easier. And I think the third point that kind of came up recently is since we started getting a lot bigger with like millions of users, um, we are able to switch from like a B2B sales model where back then it was just like very heavy BD person that has to go out and reach these brands to because now we have quite a few users, we can actually go to like a B2C to B model whereby because we have so many users, a lot of these big brands actually naturally want to come to us to work with
Mm,
us so that they can
right.
target these end users. And so like big brands like Sony, for example, like actually came to us because of like things like this. And so I think that is actually a much more scalable approach than having just like a purely B2B SaaS model. And so that's also kind of why we are now focusing more on like the end user experience. How can we kind of grow the end user base a bit more? And also kind of relates to like why we're launching a token as well.
Right. With that, do you have any examples of companies that aren't crypto related or necessarily a crypto native interacting with an audience that or a group of users that isn't crypto native or doesn't have anything to do with crypto and having like a successful integration on your platform?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one just off the top of, there's like quite a few, but one off the top of my head is probably Wonderfruit. So Wonderfruit, let me just quickly explain what they are. They're one of the biggest music festival in Asia. I think each year about 30 to 40,000 people attend the festival in Thailand. And so what we did for them last year is that we helped them issue like VIP tickets that are in the form of NFTs. And of course, like their user base don't know anything about NFTs, but they care about like the artistic value of like art, of like NFT. That's kind of what the music festival is about. They also care a lot about like uh, like different utility that you can kind of provide because I'm like a VIP holder. And so with our NFT tickets, we're able to help them easily sell NFTs to their VIPs. B, um, help them kind of get different on-site benefits and rewards because they're an NFT holder. And because both of those happened uh, and it was executed like so well, uh, they actually decided to issue NFTs to everyone that attended the event afterwards. So uh, that's also kind of a case of like where we showed a lot of our brands that hey, um, yes, we can start with like a small kind of like small test to show you that it works at a small scale. And most of the time, they'll immediately see that, hey, this is like awesome. Our consumers, our fans actually love it. And then they would actually want to do more. Um, and so with Wonderfruit, we're able to help them increase their engagement rate significantly. A ton of people started talking about their NFT, which is called the Pineapple Eyes. Um, and it went so well that, again, they wanted to work with us this year. But for some kind of business reasons, we decided not to work with them again this year. Yeah.
Um, so you guys, NFTs is one component, but you guys also work with fungible tokens. Can you talk about how that typically looks, or maybe a specific case study of when you guys had an integration with fungible tokens?
Yeah, so that's actually a new module that we recently built out. Like I said, we call it basically the brand coin launchpad, but simply put, it's like helping brands launch meme coins. And so technically it's not live yet, but we have like a wait list already with I think a couple 100,000 people that wants to participate. But effectively, what it does is effectively we work with some of our biggest brands to help them launch meme coins to their users. But these meme coins themselves are not just purely meme, like kind of keeping with the same theme that we have. Like these meme coins actually have some utility. And
Right.
so, like one of the partners that we've been talking to is probably one of the top three biggest music festivals globally. Like they want to kind of introduce this meme coin that has different like utility and purpose within the event themselves. Um, but I think the other point that I want to highlight is like why do these brands and like different events actually work with us? Like yes, one thing is like about the attention, but the other is that with NFTs with fungible tokens, they're actually able to retain their customers and fans across multiple events. So previously, there wasn't really any kind of mechanisms to do that. Yes, like you have the user's email address, but that's basically it. But what we have basically created for these brands is that we effectively help them create like a fan club, whereby based on your experience, based on what you did before, you get rewarded for your support. But you also get to kind of stick around and enjoy any upsides that maybe the brand would offer you. And so, like meme coin is just another one of these mechanisms to enter these fan club. And we kind of the first major one that we've been talking to should be launching in kind of early Q1 next year.
Very
And
interesting. I'm curious to see
yeah,
how that plays out.
yeah, I mean, like I've talked to a lot of people about it, and I think obviously it's quite controversial. I mean, it was controversial a couple months ago, but nowadays I think it's a lot more. People understand it a bit more. But generally speaking, like even these people that are very controversial about it, once I told them like which brands we have been talking to, they would be like, "Yo, send the contract address." So I think ultimately, people are controversial. I mean, skeptical about it, but they would still ape into it.
Right. Well, I guess on one hand, it's like you don't want the meme coin to become kind of too big, right? Where it's like, usurping the brand power and it has its own, it has its own community and they're doing their own thing. Like you don't want it to run away from you. But at the same time, we've seen like really successful integrations. Hyperliquid, I know, has launched a meme coin and it's like kind of like the little brother to the main thing where it's we understand the need for a meme, we understand why people like it, and we're going to launch it to this audience because it appeals to them for some reason, and I do see the value there. Can you tell me about any like really surprising outcome you've had with your platform? Something that maybe an integration that happened and it led to something that you didn't expect, or yeah, something interesting there.
So I think the way maybe I'll take it back at the very beginning. Like the way we built our business is that we never, at least like the first couple of years, to be honest, like we didn't really have like a clear vision. We knew that there was something here with like NFTs and like real world utility and how we're able to bring like Web3 into the Web2 space, but we didn't necessarily know exactly what that was. And so what we did instead is that we basically just listened to our customers and see like, hey, what do you actually want? Like, what are some potential use cases that you could see with our technology? And so at the very beginning, I was just pitching one of these customers about, hey, we have like an NFT gallery or something that you can validate your NFTs in real time. Like that's it. Like that's all we offered. And what's interesting is that this customer actually saw the potential in using this technology to actually replace like tickets. And so that actually helped us kickstart the flywheel of kind of Moongate and how we actually got here eventually. All because of like these customers seeing value in kind of our product rather than me trying to basically blindly build something that I don't know if the business or customers would actually pay or care for. And so we have been continually growing through like customer requests effectively. And I think most like recently, one thing that was surprising as well is we built out this like on-site scavenger hunt that's using kind of the Moongate technology for Token 2049. Obviously, Token 2049 is kind of one of the biggest conference in the world for crypto, and what we weren't really sure if it was going to work, to be honest, because obviously we saw like questing platforms in like Web3 online as like very successful, like companies like Project Galaxy, Questin, Layer 3, etc. Those are all like online quest platforms, but we weren't sure if we're able to replicate that success in like real world. Are we actually able to change like user behavior, get them to go to different areas of interest? But I mean, as usual, we just took the leap of faith, and and obviously our partner trusted us as well. And so we just built that out. Actually, we built that out within a week. Um, and because I mean, we already had everything in the background, but we built it out in a week and launched it at Token 2049 at the main conference. And to our surprise, it was super successful. I think it had a participation rate of about 10 to 15% of like the audience that actually went to the event, which is
Wow.
actually really high.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
we
thousands
were
and thousands of people.
thousands of people, and we were actually able to bring people to different areas of interest, get them to do different tasks online and on site, which actually brings up a really interesting business potential here. Because if you think about a conference and how they typically put their booths, right? Like obviously, I think booths that are maybe near the entrance or booths that are in the middle are a little bit more expensive, but booths that are like closer to like I don't know, like the exterior are a bit less expensive. And the reason why is because there's just frankly less foot traffic, right? But
Right.
what we're able to do with these like scavenger hunt is we're able to bring the foot traffic to different areas that are generally less populated, And in a way, we're actually increasing the value of those booths. At the same time, we're also making possible for different brands and sponsors of a specific event to be able to, I guess, pay more to advertise and be part of these quests. Like, so these quests might be, oh, go follow, I don't know, Moongate, or go, I don't know, take a selfie with them, whatever it is. Like, that just adds another element for these events to be able to um, monetize their event. And I would say like our tech is not just like, I know we had a ton of success with like events, but you can also take this same concept to like outside of events to like I guess like other brands, like maybe I don't know, Nike is having like a promotion that says, hey, if you go to this specific store, which maybe has a little bit less foot traffic, and if you buy this item or if you take a selfie and you do something, then you're actually able to earn points. And like when you collect enough points, you get to redeem a prize for it. And so that is something that is quite exciting and not really, at least I haven't really seen at a large scale in the Web2 space.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it all just came out from listening to our customers. And and so, I mean, going forward, we will continue to listen to our customers. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a way to hack or like these user flows in unique ways where it's like, okay, we have this ability to interact with this user. What can we do with that, and how can we create additional value for our customers out of that?
Yeah.
What's your biggest ambition with Moongate? Like 5 years, 10 years down the line, you say Moongate has reached this level or has accomplished this goal. What would that be?
Yeah. So taking a step back, I think what I observe is that effectively since like the dawn of the digital age, the biggest companies out there, like Facebook, Google, Instagram, etc., like all of those guys made money from basically selling your data and your attention. And so
Mm-hmm.
I realized that basically the advertisement space and the attention market, attention economy is the biggest pie that we could potentially go for. And so what I envision Moongate to be is hopefully in 3 to 5 years' time, we are able to become that dominant player that is able to facilitate these engagement data and advertisers to actually pay the end users directly um, to kind of get their attention. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and hopefully through that, like obviously like the protocol would take a small cut, but we're actually able to redistribute a lot of these value to like the real stakeholders rather than
Right.
with the centralized platforms that have been having too much control over your data. And so I would think that we would be very successful if we're able to kind of achieve that in like 3 to 5 years' time.
Mm-hmm. So kind of stage one is, reintegrating into these user flows and, brand experiences, loyalty, ticketing, stuff like that. But step two is kind of bringing that to the digital space and the mass market and interrupting, disrupting how data moves and how data is monetized across the internet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, stage one is basically how we see how we're able to collect and create primary data that we
Mm-hmm.
can direct. And stage two is how we can help our users monetize that data.
Hmm. Interesting. Wow. Cool. Do you have any learnings from your time as a Web2 entrepreneur that have really helped you with your time in Web3?
Absolutely. And I was going to talk about this just now for the previous question, but I'm so glad
Mm-hmm.
you asked about this. And so there's a reason why we, well, why my end goal is to kind of get rid of these centralized platforms. And the reason why is because we got screwed at my previous startup. So high level, what we're doing at my previous startup was it was basically a prop tech company in Silicon Valley. We raised a ton of money, and effectively we made it possible for uh, to kind of disrupt those like centralized listing agency websites
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
bring more value to the homeowners and also to like the real estate agents. And I mean, I'm not going to go into detail about how we did that, but effectively, it was so successful that we were definitely eating like the pie of these centralized platforms. And in the Web2 space, especially in the US and in real estate, unfortunately, these centralized agents actually have a ton of power on regulations. And of course, they also have a ton of control over like data. And so what we observe is that even though us as a startup, we're building something that genuinely provides more value to the homeowners as well as the real estate agents, we weren't able to continue to provide that because these centralized like listing platforms just lobbied with the government to effectively actually shut us down. And so ultimately our platform actually got shut down because of these lobbying, which is absolutely ridiculous if you think about it, because we're actually providing real value to end users,
Right.
people that matter. But because they control the data, because they are paying these uh, regulators, we just got shut down. And to me, I was extremely frustrated to see that that is even possible. It's very counterintuitive, right? It's not what you learn in the business point, like in when you're in like business school, where you have a business that clearly makes a lot, it clearly is a lot more efficient and better than the status quo. You expect that to just thrive and win. You don't really think about like the lobbying, the kind of gray market that these businesses operate in. And so that's when I realized that, you know what? I mean, so be it if that's the case. But the next business that I build needs to have, well, certain elements of kind of blockchain or crypto, whereby basically there isn't any centralized platforms that could get in the way of me providing real value to like the end users. And so that's kind of why I'm so adamant on this, because I mean, brought the beef from my previous startup to here to kind of try to try to kind of get that back.
Well, it's cool to see how like we have this disintermediated tech, right, within tokens, NFTs, and stuff, and then it's integrating with Web 2, which doesn't tend to be that way. And then, but at the end, the end of the road, the end goal with that is to re-disintermediate kind of the data and to bring that crypto ideal back into this kind of user flow. So it's cool to see kind of that cycle go first full circle.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And sorry, like I think what I observe is that a lot of these is just like a gradual evolution, right? Like you cannot jump to like the end state of, oh, I just want to build like a big engagement marketplace on day one. Like it's just practically speaking very difficult just because you don't have that primary data. Um, and so I think the way we approach it is much more pragmatic. Like, I mean, like as you observed, where we just create data first, and then we can control how that's monetized. Yeah.
Excellent. John, I think that's a great note to add or to end it on this idea of this kind of like full circle coming back. So it's been awesome. Where can people find you? What can they check out with Moongate?
Yeah, I mean, you can check it out on Twitter. Our handle is just at Moongate. Or you can check out our website, which is moongate.id. And of course, if you're interested, you can look into participating in our public sale, which is happening on November 27th. I'm not sure when this is going to go out, but if not, I mean, by then, we're doing our TGE on November 28th. So feel free to kind of check out our token, which is MGT, when that goes live.
Phenomenal. Awesome. Thanks much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack.